Welcome to Eerie Escape, where legends come alive and nightmares are very, very real. I'm Makala.
And I'm Michelle, and tonight we enter a place that has devoured countless souls. But before then, a lot of you are probably wondering, why are we recording like this again? Well, it's because of me. I can never get my life together.
Michelle sucks.
Anywho.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, big time. But you know, hey, oh well, somebody's got to do it, so. Anyway, so today's episode is a fortress built on blood, betrayal, and secrets that refuse to die. It's the Tower of London.
Oh, I've been waiting for this one. This isn't just an ancient prison. It's a prison for the dead. A place that draws you in and never lets you go. And where the screams of the tormented echo through time.
That's so scary. But, you know how things are back over the pond. I don't know how to do a British accent, but anywho, maybe I'll just do it the rest of the episode in my shitty British accent. So the Tower of London was built nearly 1,000 years ago by William the Conqueror. Its walls meant to symbolize strength, but strength became cruelty. Power became poison, and the stones of the tower have soaked up every drop of spilled blood. Ooh. That tower must be stinky.
Y'all think? Ooh. I would have hated to be in there back then, just saying. Back when people took baths like once a year.
You'd catch me with a can of Febreze, the odor eliminating kind. Regular $1 Febreze. Well, what is it called? Like the knockoff Febreze? Anyway, anywho.
So this wasn't just a prison for the body. It was a prison for the soul. Once you were locked inside, hope faded, and fear took its place. The air grew thick with despair, and for some, escape was never an option. And so, the spirits lingered there, forever bound. And they still do to this day.
Yep, and visitors say that the tower is alive with agony, betrayal, and a kind of darkness that has grown over centuries. I mean, you got to think this tower was built back in like the early, like 1066 early. Every shadow seems to move, and every gust of cold air feels like the breath of someone or something lurking. Imagine that.
I mean,
I wouldn't want anybody's hot breath on me. But
well, also, you're in a giant stone building.
Well, it's cold, but
right. The stone's absorbing all that bad energy and blood.
Mm-hmm. And hey, it might be made out of limestone.
It probably is, to be honest. Are you checking?
I'm checking. Limestone!
Shocker.
I don't know why I got so excited.
Shocker there,
it
folks.
Said, the central keep, known as the White Tower, has been about... I don't know. It says it is built of limestone from Caen in Normandy. Oh, wait. No. Yeah.
So the
So
limestone
basically,
came from France.
Limestone, yeah.
Shocker.
Imported from northern France to provide details on the tower's facing. And local mudstone was also used.
I'm just saying, okay, how many places have we talked about now that have limestone?
Limestone.
It absorbs everything.
I mean, let's be real here.
Okay. So let's talk about one of the most famous spirits trapped in the tower, Anne Boleyn, which we all know. She was executed on the cold, wet stone courtyard. Her life ended with a single, brutal swing of a sword, but her death was only the beginning.
Yes. And so Anne was stripped of her dignity, her crown, and of course, the most important thing of all, her life. But her spirit was too powerful to fade. And now, in the dead of night, she is seen gliding through the tower grounds. Headless, her severed head cradled in her arms, and they say she appears without a sound until she lets out a scream that tears through the silence.
That's so sad.
That's so sad. So Anne Boleyn was, of course, the second wife of King Henry VIII, as we all know. And King Henry VIII was apparently, well, he was a key figure in England's tumultuous break with the Catholic Church. Anywho, Anne was born around 1501. She was raised in a noble family and educated in the sophistication of the European courts. Her wit, intelligence, and charm captivated Henry, leading him to divorce his first wife, Catherine of Aragon, a scandal that split England from Rome. Scandal!
Anne was crowned queen in 1533. Anne's reign, however, was short and stormy. Her failure to bear a male heir, coupled with courtly intrigue, made her a target. And in 1536, she was accused of treason, adultery, and incest. Charges many historians believe were fabricated, by the way. Shocker. Convicted in a swift trial, Anne was beheaded in the Tower of London, leaving behind a legacy of political upheaval and her daughter, Elizabeth I, who would become one of England's greatest monarchs. Those who have seen Anne's ghost report that it's not just a vision. It's like a replay of her death. She relives that betrayal over and over, her rage and sorrow staining the tower for all eternity. And what's crazy is, there's actually a TikTok at one point. This girl had traveled to London. She's from the US. And she took a picture in one of the mirrors. And it literally looks like Anne Boleyn in the background of her picture.
I've seen that on TikTok. I've seen that too. It's pretty wild. And it's also crazy to think that she was so young and that she was betrayed by her husband. But I mean, let's face it, it was King Henry VIII. He betrayed all of his wives.
He really did.
Except for the last one, because he died before her. It's just so sad that her spirit had to stay there for forever. And it is known that after she was taken away from her head, that a proper funeral wasn't even brought for her. They had
Nope.
her ladies in waiting had to carry her body and not dispose of it, but bury it and prepare it.
What I think is so funny as a final fuck you to Henry VIII, if you go to the castle, which is Thornbury Castle, that's where they both were, where they lived. They have a whole bunch of exhibits you can go through and check things out. But Henry tried so hard to cover up Anne Boleyn and make her forgotten. And if you go there, there's little teeny tiny traces of her all over the castle still. which is like crazy.
Yeah, like all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Just a little bit of a side note, there is like a conspiracy theory that apparently at some point there's like mathematical evidence that King Henry was married so many times over the X amount of years, and there wasn't very much of a gap between him having a wife, him getting divorced or beheading her, and then another one coming up into the picture. And there's a gap between, I don't quote me on it because I don't know, this is just like a rough summary of two of the wives. But they are saying, some people are saying, he tried to erase all evidence of Anne Boleyn. What if he succeeded with another wife? He actually succeeded with wiping her completely off the face of the earth.
A wife that we know nothing about.
Like, there is a gap. Right. Like, there's a gap. I would have to look it up again, but I remember it was like 4 o'clock in the freaking morning, of course. And I was just like on a deep dive of Anne Boleyn, King Henry VIII, and all his freaking wives. But there is a like mathematical gap that is in between of two wives. Between, well, him having a wife, a huge like 3 to 4 year gap, and then the other wife, which is very unheard of for him when he started doing his whole wife thing. He would start having a wife and then like 2 years later get divorced or behead them, move on to the next one, behead them, move to the next one, the other one would die, move to the next one.
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
He just like, his whole thing was to get a male heir. That was his whole...
Right.
Which obviously it's your fault, you dumb fuck.
And a lot of people said... Right. A lot of people were saying that the reason why he couldn't consume any heirs besides his illegitimate son that died when he was like 17 years old, that he actually had to make legitimate because he had no male heir. And then Queen Elizabeth I is because a lot of people speculate that he had syphilis, and that syphilis untreated can make you sterile.
Yeah.
So...
It's your fault.
I'm just saying. Yeah. Anyway, it's your fault. I could get all into it. But obviously in the tower, Anne wasn't alone. The tower's walls hold secrets that are far darker. So in 1483, 2 young boys, Edward V and Richard, his brother, were imprisoned there. Their own uncle wanted the throne for himself, and these innocent boys were locked away, never to be seen again. This was the time that Edward V was actually the King of England, but he was very young as a king. He was only about 13 years old, and of course he had a lot of siblings, but it looks like his brother Richard was one of the boys that was the only other boy that was trapped with him, and it looks like it was his half-brother when this happened. And these boys, they don't really know what happened to them.
Decades later, skeletal remains were discovered, small bones hidden beneath the staircase. It's said that the princes still haunt the tower to this day, and that their cries of justice can be heard in the dead of night echoing off the stone walls. Which, I mean, if they did find skeletal remains in that time period, they probably didn't have anything to, like, obviously, they couldn't, like, check and be like, oh, this is definitely this person, you know?
Right.
If it was even
right, but I mean,
their
like,
bones because of how many people died there.
Yeah, true. But some visitors have reported seeing shadowy figures of the 2 boys, hands intertwined, wandering the hallways. And when they get close, the boys look up, their eyes empty, hollow, as if they are still searching for the justice that never came.
God, could you
That's
imagine
creepy.
Could you imagine? I mean, that's just like The Shining with the two twins, just like two boys just sitting there holding hands, looking at you. Like,
gosh, and they like, there's nothing in their eye sockets. Like it's just
like black holes,
emptiness. Oh.
Unfortunately, the tower's horrors go deeper than that. There's the White Lady, who drifts near the White Tower, filling the air with an overwhelming scent of decaying flowers. Witnesses say she's a noble woman imprisoned there who died watching her life crumble around her. So you can only imagine. She was probably so sad and upset that she's just like stuck there, just pretty much watching her whole life crumble. That obviously takes a toll on a person. Like obviously there's going to be some type of residual thing there because they were sad all the time.
Right. And then there's Guy Fawkes, tortured in the Salt Tower. He screamed as he was bound, beaten, and bled. And some say it was because he was being tried for treason. And some people said that he was burned. I mean, of course, there's gonna be a ton of different like things that get passed off and down throughout the years. To this day, people hear his agonized cries reverberating through the walls as if his very soul is trapped in a loop, endlessly suffering. That's so sad to be tried for treason. And back then you could be tried for treason for anything. Anything. I could literally say fuck the king and I'd be tried for treason. I mean, let's be real here.
And let's not forget about the ravens.
Raven.
They're more than a tradition, they're a warning, which is pretty common. Most people either say ravens are bad luck or it's an omen of death to come. The legend says that if the ravens ever leave, the tower and perhaps even the kingdom will fall. But maybe they're there for another reason. To guard against whatever dark forces lurk within the tower, as if they're the last line of defense between us and something far, far worse.
There's a lot of conspiracy on ravens.
Ravens. Personally, I love a raven.
Yeah, so ravens, I mean, they do say they do say if you see like 3 ravens, there's a bad omen around. Ravens can mean a lot of different things, like transformation, knowledge. They can be a messenger, healing. They can even be a trickster or just protection. So,
yeah, ravens are like the sign of Morrigan. For those of you who know who that is.
So, the Tower of London isn't just a place. It's a trap, a prison that doesn't just hold bodies, it also holds souls. The walls remember the pain, the blood, and the final gasps for air. They always crave more.
And for some, it's as if the tower follows them home, creeping into their dreams and twisting the dark corners of their own bedrooms.
Tonight, when you turn out the lights, listen closely. You might hear faint whispers or the slow, steady footsteps of someone or something, either behind you or in the corner of your room.
If you feel a chill run down your spine or see a shadow flicker when there should be none, don't panic. The tower's known to reach across time, to cross boundaries, to follow those who dare to hear its story.
Remember, you chose to listen, and some stories stay with you, whether you want them to or not. So, if you like this episode, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And what do you think about the Tower of London? Do you think it is truly haunted, or do you think it's just folklore? Make sure you let us know. We put up videos every Tuesday, and we hope to see you next time. But Until then,
Sweet nightmares.